Seven Taoist Masters, Liu Changshen's Enlightenment. Liu Changsheng was one of the disciples of Master Wang, and Master Wang had told him earlier, before he left his physical body for the eternal, he had told him that he had a weakness of sexual desire, that the lust was still something very strong, and that he would need to fight with this element. To each of his disciples, before he departed from the physical body, he said that they each were going to have to struggle with something, and particularly with their weaknesses and whatever their personalities and so on. So in this case, Liu Changsheng, he had omened this for him, and he journeyed south after his master's death and burial. He journeyed south and then east. He arrived at Taishan, a group of mountains on the eastern coast, and there he lived as a hermit for 3 years. One day he felt that his cultivation of the golden pill was complete, so he made an astral journey to the palace of the Empress of Heaven. The Empress and her court ladies were seated under a canopy surrounded by many colored clouds. When Liu Changshen saw the beauty of the ladies, he could not resist peeking at them out of the corner of his eye. His behavior was noticed by the Empress, who said, "Liu Cheng, why are you looking at my attendants?" Liu Changsheng fell down on his face. Trembling, he asked the Empress for forgiveness. "Your Majesty, I saw the beauty of the ladies and could not hide my admiration. I had no other intentions." The Empress replied, "You still have a trace of sexual desire in you. Don't you know that even though your golden pill may be fully developed, if you cannot empty your mind of sexual craving, you will never be able to ascend to the highest heavens? Because your mind is not pure, you must return to the earthly realm and continue to cultivate yourself." So, at the door of the palace, the guards gave Liu Changshen a push. They were expelling him from this heavenly place, and Liu Changshen fell back into the earthly realm. The fall woke him up, and he realized that his visit to the palace of the Empress of Heaven had been a dream. Thank goodness this was only a dream. My master warned me that my sexual desires were not completely dissolved. Now the omens have come to tell me to confront this problem. I must leave to the mountains and find someone to instruct me. Liu Changsheng left Taishan. After traveling for 3 days, he met Tan Changchen on the road. This was another disciple of Master Wang. So the two brothers greeted each other and related what they had experienced. When Tang Changshen heard Liu Changshen's description of his dream and learned of his search for a teacher to advise him, Tang Changshen said, "Let me tell you a story." They sat down under a tree, and Tang Changshen said, "Once there was a man named Hu Xiangyang, and Hu Xiangyang became enlightened later, and he returned to the earthly realm to teach and had more than 100 students. One day Xiang Yang asked his students whether they had severed their attachments to worldly desires, and all his students claimed to have done so. And he said to them, I shall give you a test. If you pass this test, then I shall give you advanced instructions in internal alchemy. Each of you should take a plank of wood measuring 4 feet by 2 feet. Place it on your bed tonight and sleep beside it. Bring your plank with you when you report to me the next morning. The students went away thinking that they could all pass such an easy test with flying colors. That night each student went to sleep lying beside a wooden plank. In the middle of the night, as each one turned toward the plank, he felt something warm and soft. Groping around, he felt the body of a naked young woman. The students' sexual fires were aroused at once, and their generative energy drained out of their bodies. Each one's heart was full of desire for the body beside him, and even in sleep they embraced it. On awakening the next morning, the students saw that they were hugging the wooden planks. They sat up bewildered, but from outside the dormitory the teacher's bell was heard, summoning them to the instruction hall. The students hurriedly filed into the hall with their planks. Hu Xiangyang ordered each of them to show him the wooden plank. The first student on the line was a man 76 years of age. Hu Xiangyang looked at him and said, At your age you still cling to sexual desires? Sir, how could you know that I have not severed my ties to sexual craving? Hu Xiangyang replied, Look at your plank. There are stains of your seminal fluid. Your sexual desires were roused when you felt a naked body next to you, and with that your generative energy was drained. The man hung his head in shame and walked to the back of the room. Hu Xiangyang then said, If there is anyone whose plank has no stain of seminal fluid on it, let him step up. There was a long silence. The students did not dare to step forward because when they examined their planks, they found them to be stained with their involuntary emissions. But there was one who did step forward. And Hu Xiangyang said, How is it that you were able to tame your sexual desire? And he replied, Sir, I learned abstinence by overexposure. Hu Xiangyang said, How so? And the student replied, Most people know that their desires will ultimately lead to harm. However, they do not acknowledge the danger until they have tasted it. Once one has experienced the adverse consequences of sexual craving, then one will avoid it like the plague. When I was an adolescent, I could not control my sexual craving. I frequented the brothels and lay with a woman every night. As a result, after a few years, my body was drained of energy and my mind was stripped of clarity. I almost died because I could not resist the temptation of sex. Liu Changshen said, Brother, your story. Uh, oh, and so, sorry. And so Hu Xiangyang nodded his head and said to the disciple, You are the only student who is ready to receive the advanced teachings. The rest of the people need more work in preparing their foundations. And it is said that this student who eventually received the transmission of the teachings of the Tao from Hu Xiangyang and eventually attained enlightenment. And Liu Changshen said, Brother, your story has inspired me. The brothels will be the place of my training. I shall look on the activities there until I see the emptiness in them. Tan Changshen said, We are nearing the birthplace of Lao Tzu. Let us visit the shrine first, and then we can continue our separate ways. And so Liu Changsheng um, actually went to a city where there was a brothel, and this was apparently how he was led, that he was going to tame his sexuality. And so Wang Chengyang, his master, had taught him, view everything before you with calmness. True stillness is when a landslide passes before you and you are not disturbed. Thus, Liu Changshen treated the beautiful woman before him in the brothel as an empty form. His heart was not moved, and therefore his body did not desire her. Because his intentions were pure, his senses did not attach themselves unto the attractions in front of him. Liu Changsheng and Madame Yu, the woman who he had picked in the brothel and paid to be alone with her, they enjoyed each other's company as friends. They ate together, they played music together, and they even slept together in the same bed. But as far as Liu Changshen was concerned, he was sleeping beside a plank of wood. All this time, Liu Changshen told his eyes to look but not see Madame Yu's beauty, his ears to listen but not hear her seductive voice. Anybody looking at directions would see two people playing with each other like children. When the other ladies in the brothel heard of Liu Changshen's strange relationship with Madame Yu, they were curious and asked that they be allowed to attend Liu Changshen as well. The proprietress, who was kept happy by Liu Changshen's seemingly endless supply of gold pieces, was Tui, who which he was probably turning from some other base metals, since he is a Taoist approaching immortality, and so he probably had an unlimited gold. Well, so the proprieties was so happy with all the money coming in from Liu Changshan, yeah, that she encouraged him, and thus Liu Changshen was often accompanied by 5 or 6 ladies, who were continually amused by his lack of sexual interest toward them, and the friendly and understanding way in which he treated them, not as objects for pleasure, but as intelligent human beings. And one day the ladies had bought some flowers for Liu Changshen and persuaded him to dress up as a woman, and Liu Changshen laughed and consented. Just as the ladies were beginning to dress him in woman's clothing and put flowers in his hair, the door of the room opened and a bearded, long-haired monk stepped in. The monk had bushy eyebrows and the complexion and features of one from the lands far to the west, over the great mountains. This monk was none other than Bodhidharma, the great patriarch of Buddhism, who was wandering through China, visiting the Buddhist monasteries. He was passing through the Suhang region when he saw a purple cloud hovering over the brothel where Liu Changshen was staying. Knowing that the purple cloud signified the presence of an immortal, Bodhidharma decided to seek out this enlightened person. When Bodhidharma burst into the room, the ladies were shocked by his foreign appearance, and they hurriedly ran behind Liu Changshen for protection. When Liu Changshen saw Bodhidharma, he knew that this was an enlightened person, a bodhisattva who had dissolved all attachments to cravings and desire. He rose from his seat and respectfully asked Bodhidharma to have tea with him. And so Liu Changshen had actually stayed at the brothel for over a year when Wang Yang came through the Suhang region on his way south, another disciple of Master Wang. and Wang Yuyang decided to find Liu Changsheng. When he arrived at the brothel where Liu Changsheng was staying, the ladies welcomed him and said, "Sir, are you looking for the man who can cook cakes on his belly?" Wang Yuyang laughed and said, "Yes, but how do you know?" The ladies replied, "A while ago a Buddhist monk visited our guest. Since you are also a monk, you must be looking for Chang Shentsu as well." They led Wang Yuyang to the guest room where Liu Changsheng was staying. Wang Yuyang heard laughing and jesting voices from one of the rooms and recognized that one of the voices belonged to his brother. And after showing magical powers, Wang Yuyang, some of the ladies got scared, but Liu Changshan laughed mildly and said, "Do not be afraid. It is only that he's having magical powers." And he opened the door, smiled, and said, "No, I am playing tricks on the I'm the one playing tricks. If you say I am a monster, I shall not argue with you. However, it is monstrous to use fire to harm people. And brother, hurry and leave. You must go immediately to the south. There is someone waiting for you to accompany him to the immortal realm." As Wang Yuyang turned to leave, he said to Liu Chengshen, "Brother, when are you planning to leave this place?" Liu Chengshen replied, "I shall leave when I leave." Wang Yuyang nodded, bowed, and left. On the road south, Wang Yuyang met Tang Changchen, and together they decided to head for the mountains in the south to spend some time in solitude and meditation. It is said that in the cloud-covered peaks of the southwest region of China, Wang Yuyang and Tang Changchen, two of the disciples of Master Wang, attained the Tao and became immortal. As for Liu Changshen, he left the brothel soon after Wang Yuyang's visit. His sexual desires completely dissolved. He was now ready to leave the immortal realm. Liu Changshen retreated into the mountains near the eastern coast, and after 3 years of meditation, he became immortal and ascended into the heavens. How Taiku attained immortality? In the cliffs of the palm-shaped mountain. So another How Taiku of the disciples of Master